Breaking. Hello everyone, welcome to Freedom Fighter 2127. Does anybody know what this is? The President's Task Force. Yes, the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, March 2015. This is a 109-page document all about the federal takeover of police stations and more, a lot more. Policing, basically. Do we know who this is? Stephanie Rawlings Blake, the mayor. She happens to be Obama's federal takeover of local police. Major player. Notice where this is going, folks. Let me read you this here. This is a written statement. It's only 2 pages. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today at this first public listening session of the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing. Thank you to the task force, co-chairs, as well as my fellow panelists, Mayors Johnson, Nutter, and Landrieu. Today's topic on building trust and legitimacy are at the forefront of what we have been working to improve in Baltimore. And I am eager to share some of our successes, as well as how the federal government can be a partner in some of our initiatives we are working to implement moving forward. This was posted, I can't remember what date, I think there's a date on it. I think it's at the bottom. Hang on one sec. Let me keep going. Over the past several months, we have all seen where the need to build trust between communities of color and law enforcement is an area in need of constant attention. We must remain vigilant in our quest to ensure that our police officers are respectful and accountable while maintaining our focus on providing safe communities for residents, businesses, and visitors. Baltimore has made tremendous progress in reducing violent crime, but we still struggle to repair the breach between community and police. 4 years ago, Baltimore City Police reached a pivotal moment in our city's crime fight when for the first time in many years, our year-end homicide number was less than 200. As I toured many communities, I expected residents to feel good about the progress being made and I acknowledged that Baltimore was turning a corner in the decades-long history of violence that had plagued our city for generations. Instead, I heard that while residents acknowledged the significance of the homicide reductions, they were equally concerned about the tactics used by police officers in order to achieve the crime reductions we were experiencing. 4 years later, Baltimore is in a much better place with finding the right balance between being tough on crime and building bridges of trust with the community. In 2014, Baltimore experienced a 10% decline in homicides, as well as a drop in every major crime category: shootings, robberies, and burglaries. We have seen significant decreases in the number of excessive force complaints and lawsuits filed against police. While at the same time, more residents are reaching out to law enforcement with helpful tips to take violent criminals off the streets. We have demonstrated that Baltimore can learn from its past. Previously, Baltimore had experienced decreases in crime, yet many neighborhoods felt under siege due to a high number of arrests. Recent statistics show us striking a better balance, and police-community relations improving as a result. This past year, we achieved both reductions in violent crime as well as reductions in the number of arrests made. In 2015, my administration will continue to work aggressively at ridding our streets of violence and building better relationships between police and community. We will implement our new police schedule to put more cops on the streets during peak periods of crime. We will work in partnership with the Department of Justice COPS program to bring additional transparency and accountability to policing, as well as implement a thoughtful and comprehensive police body camera program. So if that's the case, if they're implementing a thoughtful and comprehensive police body camera program, then the question becomes, well, we're seeing an incident here with Mr. Freddie Gray, which later on we'll break down the name. The name is extremely significant and you're going to be shocked. But they should be wearing body cameras by now. So we should know every little moment of every second of what happened during that arrest, but why aren't we allowed to see it? Maybe it would slow down the protests and riots, which obviously tonight the riots and protests are kind of peaceful. Hey, with Ferguson, it all kicked off right as they declared state of emergency, right as they declared a curfew. That's when the real crime began. We saw the streets erupt. So we'll see what takes place, honestly. But I did notice that today The National Guard wasn't wearing riot gear. They were basically touting rifles and so on and so forth. They're not looking for a fight. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me, because we've seen their drills, and their drills with riot gear are supposed to be for constitutionalists, but now they've just carrying guns. The federal government, I mean, obviously what we saw yesterday was horrific. It wasn't even against police, it was against people. It was just chaos. The federal government can be a strong partner in our efforts in build better relationships between the police and community. A good start is a focus on better training for our police officers. They need to learn more than the logistics of policing, but also the broader significance of their role in our society. My administration has focused police interactions with the community on 3 core principles: impartiality, legitimacy, and procedural justice, and training for the entire department centers on those principles. Our department is adding ethics lessons and situational training exercises, more opportunities for officers to get hands-on experience in the proper ways to work with members of the community. The goal is building the belief in every officer that a safe neighborhood can't be achieved without the trust and confidence that comes from community engagement. But there's more to be done when it comes to training. Our police commanders are constantly seeking additional dollars, both to develop the best practices and to then teach those practices to our officers and our developing leaders. If there is any place where the federal government and U.S. Department of Justice could produce a tangible impact on our officers and our efforts, it would be to provide more resources in this area. Additional grant funding should also be made available to help local jurisdictions expand their internal affairs division to better hold law enforcement accountable when they act unlawfully. One of Baltimore's strategic goals is to have internal affairs comprised entirely of supervisors. That creates a high level of accountability in the investigations and ensures that officers are being held accountable for their actions. Having grant funding pay for those positions would expedite that process. A key focus should also include better utilizing technology to build trust with local communities. Body cameras are the next step in policing. To purchase, issue, maintain, and replace body cameras will be expensive. The bigger expense will be the shortage of all the data they record. The storage. Wow. It is no longer a luxury, but a necessity to hold bad officers accountable and to defend good officers from false accusations. Body cameras are a necessary tool for restoring public trust, and something I know the Obama administration has indicated a commitment to. Having access to the federal funding set aside for the cameras will help Baltimore become one of the first major cities to implement a program citywide. We know all about the Obama administration and how they do things. Just today, here comes Al Sharpton to Baltimore, which typically when that happens, that's another sign that things are going to take a turn for the worse, because they bring in outsiders who destroy cities and so on and so forth. There's a video that was by the local news of the Bloods and the Crips uniting and saying, we're not behind this. We want to stop the violence. I don't know if I believe it or not, but hey, honestly, with what happened in Ferguson, we saw all the outsiders come in. They were the reason that this whole situation got blown out of proportion, which could very well be the same thing. If you really think about it, what do gangs do? What's part of their business? Part of their business is taking care of properties. They make store owners pay for protection. So why would they screw their own business in gaining money by destroying the same buildings that they quote-unquote protect? That's just one section of the Bloods and the Crips. And do you really think that the gangs want more cops on the streets? No, they want to run the streets, which is exactly what the part of the New World Order's agenda is going to be, is that the gangs are going to run the streets. I keep saying that, and they won't be nice, put it that way. Let me conclude by reiterating the deep appreciation and admiration that I have for all the men and women who work so hard to create safe communities in Baltimore. I know that they face tremendous challenges, and I know that the vast majority of them agree that dignity and respect are at the core of strong community policing. Thank you for the opportunity to share our experiences in Baltimore. I look forward to answering any questions. Okay, so that's her official. So she is a part of the Obama administration's plan on bringing in federal police. Which what do we know about federal policing? We can go to our maps here. These are the places that have really officially accepted and have the local law enforcement been taken over by feds. Minneapolis, I can't remember this exact one. Gary, Indiana, sorry. Pittsburgh, Birmingham, and Fort Worth, Texas. Let's go to the InfoWars article. Let me screw this over a little bit here. There we go. Baltimore Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake, who gave rioters, quote, space to destroy property and reportedly told police to stand down. This is 100% a play. They are going by the book. This is obviously either a test or, because of Freddie Gray's name, they're bringing something with this. We'll go over that later. Space to destroy property and reportedly told police to stand down was a key player in the Justice Department's plan to expand federal control over local law enforcement. Rawlings Blake was one of the 3 mayors who provided broad input into President Obama's task force on 21st century policing, which advocates the federalization of police departments across the country by forcing them to adhere to stricter federal requirements when they receive funding. What are those requirements? I do wonder, don't you? Panel 5 mayors. The federal government can be a strong partner in our efforts and build better relationships between the police and community, she said in a written testimony before the task force. That would explain her inaction to stop the rioting when it began. By allowing it to spiral out of control, the mayor and her friends at the Justice Department could use the unrest to justify the expansion of federal power. It just makes sense. Into local law enforcement, which would also allow her to receive more funding. All about the Benjamins. President Obama said the task force on 21st century policing is directed at the 18,000 law enforcement jurisdictions that are out there. I'm going to be asking Eric Holder and the Justice Department and his successor to go through all these recommendations so that we can start implementing them, he said. I know that one area that's going to be of great interest is whether we can expand the COPS program that in the past has been very effective, continues to be effective, but is largely underfunded, to see if we can get more incentives for local communities to apply some of the best practices and lessons that are embodied in this report. And Rawlings Blake was more than willing to apply these, quote, best practices in exchange for federal funding. What's funny is we exposed the entire funding and the Obama administration's policing behind Ferguson. If you haven't looked at that, there's an article on the website that I've put out that's got all the links that you could ever imagine, and they're all government documents, almost all of them, government documents, stating how the entire city of Ferguson was pretty much set for razing. They were going to do it anyways, destroy the city anyways. So why not test or, quote, bring in the feds? Why not use these incidents to further the police state, to further martial law? Our police commanders are constantly seeking additional dollars, both to develop best practices and to then teach those practices to our officers and our developing leaders, she also said. If there is any place where the federal government and U.S. Department of Justice could produce a tangible impact on our officers and our efforts, it would be to provide more resources in this area. So what do we think she had to do to get this federal funding? This COPS program is extremely interesting. I have not read this whole thing. Building trust and legitimacy. Oh, that means just step back, let the paid instigators go ahead and destroy everything and rile people up. Training and education. I mean, we can go through this whole thing if you want to. But anyways. Okay, well, that being said, we're really working on the symbolism in the name Freddie Gray. That video will be coming out most likely next. I might do another video later. It might be later on tonight. We're still working on breaking it down. Guys, it's extremely significant, and we need to pay attention as to what the hell's going on, especially in Baltimore, especially around the world, because a lot of people are thinking that Baltimore is a distraction. Hey, they draw our attention to one place, they draw our attention to another place because they're doing something in the background, and it will not be covered on the news. It will not be covered pretty much anywhere until a couple weeks later. Oh, hey, by the way, this happened. So anyways, that's all the news I've got for right now. I want to thank everybody for watching. Please check out the websites, freedomfighterreports.com, socialexodus.net, and the forum. I'll leave the link for that as well. we're getting a lot of stuff, a lot of information sharing, and so on and so forth. It's pretty awesome. God bless and carry on.